Hello everyone, and welcome back to Yogaphora Conversations. Welcome to my channel Yogaphora, where we highlight voices in wellness, creativity, and transformation. People who inspire us to see the world a little differently. I am your host, Andrea Spadafora, licensed massage therapist, yoga instructor, and Italian language tutor, interpreter, and translator here in Brentwood, Missouri at the CIBC place. Today I'm so excited to welcome our guest, writer, researcher, and storyteller, Amanda E. Doyle. If you live in Missouri or St. Louis, chances are you've crossed paths with her work. Whether it's Missouri Weird and Wonderful, 100 Things to Do in St. Louis Before You Die, Standing Up for Civil Rights in St. Louis, or her beautiful history of Tower Grove Park. Amanda has a gift for uncovering the unique, quirky, and deeply human stories that connect us to place and community. In our conversation today, we'll talk about her creative process, the deeper themes behind her writing, and the ways her books invite us to see Missouri with fresh eyes. We'll also take a closer look at the humor, curiosity, and history that shape her work. So let's dive right in. Amanda, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. That all sounded so exciting. I was wondering who we were talking about, so I'm going to try to be lively and curious.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's an honor to have you here today with your beautiful bright blue eyes. They're shining so bright, like jewels, like the color of the Mediterranean Sea. Il mare Mediterraneo. All right, so let's
I said French. I was a French minor, sorry. I'll answer in French. How about that?
Well, you just told me the word andiamo, so you speak a little Italian, which means let's go. Fusilli, pasta cannoli. I'm going to give her an interview she can't refuse. So let's talk about some background and just getting to know you in general and how you draw the inspiration. So can you share a little bit about your background and what first drew you to storytelling?
Sure, yeah. So I was born in Memphis, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up there. My family is mostly from around that area or Mississippi. And I lived there until I was in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
We moved when I was in, I think, sixth grade, 6th
Mm-hmm.
or 7th, to Florida.
Okay.
And I went to high school in St. Petersburg, Florida. Lived very near the beach and never went to it because when you live close to something, you don't value it.
Of course. Look at me. I mean, I'm a transplant from southern Italy, specifically the Amalfi Coast. Everybody's asking me, how did you leave that paradise?
Right, at the time. Wherever you are, it's just your background. So, so I went to high school there, and then I came to Missouri to go to college. I went to the University of Missouri to go to journalism school.
Journalism school, okay.
And I knew I've always been, I always wanted to write. I knew that's what I wanted to do.
You already knew inside of you that was your calling?
I think so. I just liked it, and especially the journalism kind of nonfiction angle gives you a license to be nosy. Mm-hmm. I like being nosy. So it seemed like, that's kind of, it's a legitimate career. You can just go ask people whatever you want.
Yes.
So, but I always wrote, even as a kid, I wrote stories that I illustrated very poorly. And I said I don't know if you know Highlights Magazine. It's like a kid magazine that is still around. One of my children still gets in the mail every month. But back in the day, in the 70s, when I was a kid, it was a hardcover thing that came in the mail. They always had them at the doctor's office. So you would take your kid to the doctor and they would get hooked on looking at it, and then there would be a card in there, subscribe, get it at home. Mm-hmm. But they accepted submissions from children writers. So I constantly sent in things to Highlights Magazine, which were never published.
Okay. It's a bummer.
It's all right. I think I was more mad about it at the time. So I always liked to write.
So you kept trying and trying until finally you find your...
I knew, and I was...
carved your way into your career.
Right. And so I came to journalism school and did that for 4 years. I actually met my now husband when we were at college together.
Ciao, Brian.
Hi,
we're
Brian.
good friends from roller skating and skating in general.
Yeah, exactly. And then eventually I went to graduate school in Springfield, Illinois, because I wasn't sure what else to do. I didn't want to get a job. So I decided to keep going to school till my parents decided to stop paying for it. And then I moved to...
It was expensive. How much did you pay for
I really can't remember. Well,
It's definitely cheaper than today.
So much cheaper. I think for undergraduate, my cost was something like $7,000 a year, which seemed like a lot at the time, and now it's probably not a month's worth of anything.
Yes.
Yeah. So then, when Brian and I got married, we moved to St. Louis. He was mostly from here, and I started working for a magazine in St. Louis. I worked for the Visitor magazine.
The Visitor magazine, very cool. Most locals will know about it for sure.
Yeah. So that's how I got into it.
Yeah. So in fact, the second question: when did you first realize you wanted to be a writer? Was that before? I mean, was it in your teenage years or?
Yeah, I guess when I was in high school, I was on the yearbook committee at our school, so I was doing it then. And
because at the time you were a teenager, you're nothing but potential. You can get into so many directions,
right.
And most guys these days, or most ladies these days, don't know really what you want to do in the future.
Right.
So picking one and focusing on one thing is so important.
It is, and it's hard because I think you don't know what you want to do until you start doing it sometimes.
Yes.
Or you don't know what you don't want to do, especially if you start doing something and think, no, this isn't it. But yeah, I was pretty set on doing journalism as a college degree, and I feel fortunate in that because I just went and I got right into it. I didn't waste a lot of time doing things that I didn't want to do, but I don't know. We have a child who's doing a college search right now, and he doesn't have much of an idea of what he wants to do, and so it's a different. You want to look for paths that will get you somewhere that you want to go, even if you don't quite know where that is yet. So.
Yes, because you cannot see it until you actually go through the process and you discover you attract people and situations that increase your self-esteem and confidence about building what you want to build, your own path, your own career.
Right.
So, what was your first published piece, and how did you feel seeing your name in print?
I was trying to think of what my first published piece was. I mean, I was a kid who my mom was a teacher, and she used to, among the school supplies she had were those carbon copy sheets. Do you know where you write on it and it had the purple ink on the bottom? Okay, so that's how they made copies for her students. And so we had papers like that at home. So I was the kid who would steal a few of those and make like a neighborhood newsletter. I would write it on there, and then I would use peel it off and make the purple part to make copies and hand it around. So I was publishing myself before anyone else published me. Probably things in the high school yearbook probably that I wrote about things happening at school, and then we had bylines on them, and it came out, and I felt it makes it seem very real.
Sure.
When you see it written down somewhere.
Exactly. Adds a sense of specialness and uniqueness to your personality, your creativity, right?
Right.
And having a branded name that is only yours, and see your name somewhere out there, I think raises your self-esteem. Let's see. Were there any particular authors or books that inspired you early on?
Oh gosh, I always loved reading. It's funny, Molly and I were talking about this the other day. I really liked an author named Madeleine L'Engle who wrote A Wrinkle in Time. That was like her big, and she's sort of a sci-fi fantasy author, and I do not read that now. I don't read that genre now, but as a kid I really liked it because it was just magical enough. It wasn't completely, through the looking glass, but it seemed like real kids, and then sort of interesting things happened to them. So, but yeah, I read, and I still read a lot of fiction, but I don't write fiction, which is interesting to me. That seems very hard to me, making up everything, making up the whole world.
Think of the whole series of Harry Potter, for example.
Yes.
It got so popular.
And knowing that entire world and how everyone in it is going to interact, and that's very daunting. I don't even know how you start to do that, but I do read a lot of fiction. So.
Good. What role has Missouri played in shaping your career as a writer? Because you moved from Kansas, right?
Right. Yeah. So. Well, it's been everything. I mean, all the books that I have written have been based in St. Louis or Missouri or the Missouri-Illinois area.
Yes.
So,
as you guys can see.
Right. And it is very funny because people assume that I'm from here because this is,
that's
all I
exactly
write
what I
about.
assumed.
Right. But I've only been here for 28 years now, so not quite. It's, when I came to St. Louis as an outsider, I think it made me ask questions and look at things differently than I would have if I had grown up here. I didn't know anything. So and I had no problem admitting I didn't know anything. So I would go anywhere, I would talk to anybody, I would go to neighborhoods I'd never been to before.
It takes courage. It takes quite a bit of courage.
Yeah, but again, see that journalism training gave me kind of the shield, right? Because you can just say, I'm just looking into it.
That's right.
It's just a professional. Yes,
okay,
gives you an
got
excuse.
the badge. I got my badge.
Exactly, my press pass, which doesn't exist, but yeah. So, but Missouri has really, it's shaped a lot of what I write about. I find it sort of endlessly interesting. So.
What's one non-obvious fact about you that people wouldn't guess from reading your work? Non-obvious.
What is not obvious about me? Oh my goodness. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I'm going to think on that one and come back to
Sure.
it. Pass. It's like
Pass.
a game show. Pass.
Yes. We got a lot of questions.
I'll
so
think of
let's
something
keep
not
going.
obvious while we're talking.
Do you see yourself more as a journalist, a historian, a storyteller, or a blend of all three?
Definitely not a historian. I mean, I do write a lot of history, but I always get a little itchy. So I've had people introduce me like at a talk as a historian, and that makes me very nervous because I'm not trained as a historian. I think probably mostly the skills I use are journalism skills, but I'm always looking for that human story to bring to the front of it, because nothing is interesting to me unless there is like a person or a beating heart behind it, you know. So you can talk all day about facts and figures and dates, and that's great, and we need to know those things. I think history is super important, but nobody's going to remember that,
right?
You know, I mean, I don't know, when you were in school, I'm sure you had to memorize the dates of 1,000 things, and then you took the test, and then you forgot it.
I would much rather memorize the things from Missouri Weird and Wonderful. Just the fun, odd facts that will stick to your natural wonder as a kid.
Right, and yes, that's something that you can kind of latch your mind onto, and then it will sort of tell you the rest of the story. But yeah, relating to that story is the most important thing for me.
Yes. Interesting. You know, and I noticed that your books, I've scanned through, I haven't really read in depth, but I noticed that the way that they're written, they are very accessible. The language and the facts are very accessible to the average layman out there, so it's very easy to read,
that's
even
good,
for kids.
And that's another thing. Most of the things I write, I try to make it so that anyone who wants to read it can read it. But that I think it's conversational. Even though when you're reading it, I'm not sitting there, but but I am in a way. The voice that I want to be in there is like we're having a conversation.
Great.
Because again, when you have something to contribute to it, you'll remember it more. You know, when you feel like you're invested in it. So.
How did growing up in the Midwest shape your curiosity about people and places? Like I moved to the East Coast as a transplant from Italy, and I noticed that the collective consciousness that exists there is different than the West Coast. Now we are in the Midwest, right? So we are connected to the social, economics, and of course diversities or lack thereof sometimes, and the cliquiness of certain neighborhoods. That's so. Tell me about what growing up in the Midwest.
I think coming to St. Louis as an outsider, it's funny, I didn't experience it as very cliquey, but I know a lot of people do, and I think the reason is because when I came back to St. Louis, I was already married, and my husband was from here and had a few connections still, so that kind of gave us a path or like a set of people. But I find Midwestern people to be really friendly once you kind of pursue them.
It's true. It's true.
So being from the South originally, and anybody in the South will tell you everything you don't want to know right off the bat. They're talkers. They are people who talk. Midwesterners are a little more reserved, I feel like.
That's true. But they will give you a chance if they allow you the benefit of the doubt.
Right. They'll give you a chance.
When I've been here, I moved here only 3 years ago, and it's been quite a journey. But even though, despite all the rumors saying, "Oh, it's cliquey," it's not so welcoming to outsiders. Instead, if you present yourself as someone that genuinely wants to add value to people rather than just taking value from people, you will always find open doors.
Right, right, and I mean,
in other words, it's about attitude, how you show up in the world.
And you're right about adding value. Like when I mean, obviously I write all these books. I want people to buy them all, but
Yes.
I don't just want to sell. I'm happy to sell someone a book, but I never approach any group or anything like I want to come talk about my book and sell my book. I say, is this something that would be of interest to your like church group? What do you think they would find interesting about this? Can I come and talk about that?
Yes.
Because then it's building a relationship. It's not just saying,
absolutely.
Hi, I'd like your money. Goodbye, I'm leaving. So,
right.
Yeah.
Because we all have a built-in BS detector, right? When somebody's just trying to sell you something for its own personal profit or benefit, or if you really want to create a sense of community or village, like.
Well, and what you do as well, the things anybody could go buy a yoga instruction DVD, right?
Yes,
Anybody can
totally.
buy my book from Amazon and never look at me. So I'm trying to bring something that you can't buy from Amazon.
That's right.
I'm trying to provide an experience that is not available just as a transactional purchase.
Right. And I often said, and I experienced in my career, I've been doing massage for 30 years now. Almost 30, it's not 25. But what I find consistent in the marketplace is that people buy people before they buy their products or services. Yeah. You want to go and you want to choose somebody that you like, you trust, you have a rapport, you have some level of authentic relationship.
Yeah, definitely. Right? Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Missouri memory that still influences your work?
Oh gosh, I mean so many. What would be?
I'm gonna close the door so I can.
Oh sure, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I think of like many of especially some of my first books are guidebook kind of books, like neighborhood guidebooks, and I have so often been just walking around in places looking at things or trying to find something and had someone come out and say, what are you doing? Who are you? Why are you snooping around? What's going on? And then telling them, I'm trying to find out about this thing, or I heard there was this historical place, or I don't know if this business still exists. And then people just immediately wanting to be like, oh my gosh, yes, come in. We have a photo album of it. Let me show you, that kind of thing. So that's happened to me. That's happened to me more than once. Just walking around and having people wonder what the hell I'm doing, and then opening up to tell me something. So
yes. How do you balance personal storytelling with factual researched history?
Whew, it's hard.
Because you add your own personal flavor, right? Your interpretation of facts.
Right. Yes. I mean, again, I want my voice to be in it, because I feel like you can look up facts on Google or Wikipedia. So I want to arrange things in a way that tells a particular story or gives you a feeling about a place. But I start doing research, and like I said, since I'm not a trained historian, I feel like I have to do a lot of research. I want to make sure that I know what I'm talking about, and that's the hardest part, is stopping doing the research to do the writing, because it's rabbit holes all the way down.
Right, rabbit holes. So let's talk about this is what I'm mostly interested about you, is your creative process.
Okay.
Right, so, how do you get inspired to write the first book, or excuse me, not the first book, a new book project? Is that something that comes natural to you? You just wake up one day and get, boom. Just like, Michael Jackson used to say, I didn't write songs, the songs came through me. They were channeled from above, Billie Jean, etc.
Right,
So how do you begin a new book project?
Oh, I wish it were that. That sounds so easy and wonderful to wake up and the book is there and you just have to channel it out. I keep a million. I'm still a very paper and pen person.
Yeah, I can tell. You have a lot of notes in your books.
Yes, all of my books have paper stuffed inside them from either talks I've given or ideas I had or post-it notes of things that didn't make it in the book. But so I just keep a lot of notes all the time about things I hear, things I run into, things I read. People who give me an idea for something. Whenever I am somewhere selling books, like at a holiday fair or something like that, people will come up and just, you're sort of trapped, so they're going to talk to you. But people will give you crazy ideas, and sometimes, 10 crazy ideas, and there might be one like, oh, that's kind of a good idea. So
how do you zone in? How do you focus on one particular aspect of what you want to write? For example, Missouri, wonderful and weird.
Yeah.
So
I think just
you plant the seed by writing a note, right? You plant the seed, and then you have to scan through the whole different ideas.
Yeah, I do, and you should see the piles of paper in my house. But I do, but they do tend to kind of, after a while, they do tend to kind of organize themselves in a way. You're like, oh right, like that all kind of makes sense together. I can see a thread through those things. But you know, I have notes. I posted notes of things I probably will never see the light of day because they just, you know, it's a one thing, or I'll forget it or something like that.
Right.
So.
Do you outline heavily or let stories reveal themselves as you go?
I am not a good outliner. I'm not a good planner at all. Mm-hmm. So I try to.
You write one chapter at a time?
I do. I mean, I have a very general structure. And some of the books that I write, if they're like the Tower Grove Park book I knew from the beginning it would be a chronological story. So that helps, you know, where it starts and it stops today. But yeah, I tend to just go with the flow. I tend to write first and then organize after.
Good.
So take all the clumps of things. And that's one thing that, you know, digital tools are very nice for. Copy that whole chunk, paste it over here.
Yes, yes. You know, we have technology that is unprecedented. You know, was unheard of just 20 years ago, right?
Yes, just access to resources.
Plus AI, and there's a lot of stuff that can be done in little to no time. Mm-hmm. What's your writing routine like? Early mornings, late nights, or whenever inspiration strikes?
Not early mornings. Yeah, I do most of my work very late at night. Usually after everyone else is in bed, because that is when I feel like, okay, now I can focus on this. So when I have to, I can, you know, sit down during the normal day like a normal person. But I do a lot late at night.
Everybody's different. You know, I'm a morning person, for example. I get my creative meditation. You know, all of the brain is so active in the morning. Mm-hmm. I get those 10 minutes of deep focus or deep work. And I get so much done within 30 minutes, even when Peter is still sleeping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, sometimes, I mean, that can work too. I think it's any time that you feel like your time is really your own, right? Mm-hmm. That nobody needs anything from you. You've done what you need to do for yourself, and it's like, okay, let's burn through this. So, yeah, but for me, that's late at night mostly.
You ever find yourself writing notes under the shower, like you're showering, you getting that?
I just was talking with some friends about this last night. We were talking about, somebody was saying, do you listen to a lot of podcasts? And I said, no, even though there are some I like, I don't know when people are listening to podcasts. I feel like I've never, and a friend of mine said, whenever I'm walking, like I walk or bike and I'm listening. But when I walk through the park or go for a bike ride, I don't listen to anything because that is when I get ideas. Of course, then the problem is you're on a bike.
Exactly.
So sometimes I do have my phone and I'm doing a voice memo saying, don't forget this. But
great.
But yeah, that's when I get a lot of ideas. When you're just out walking, you know, with no particular purpose, and the mind can just bounce around.
Great. How do you overcome writer's block? If you have writer's block.
I do sometimes. You know, I find a really good trick I have used, actually a couple. Sometimes I will send what I've written to a friend and just say, is this going somewhere? Have I lost it? Does this make sense? And a lot of times I'll just read what I've written out loud, and that helps a ton. Because hearing it trying to hear it the way that someone reading it for the first time would be experiencing it, sometimes can make you.
Well, it's good that you can, you can delegate your work to somebody else. You know, getting a third eye or a different pair of eyes to look at your work, and be able to trust your BFF, best friend forever.
And then sometimes you just have to leave it alone. If it's, if you're just stuck, just don't even look at it. Go do something else. Come back to it another time.
Interesting. So you give yourself a good chunk of time. You give yourself, if you want to write a book, you can, you don't put a deadline on when.
Well, luckily publishers are very good at giving you a deadline. So yeah, typically I'm not good at enforcing my own deadlines on myself. But that's why another reason I went into journalism, because that's a career that comes with deadlines. Someone will tell you, here's how many words, and we need it by X day, and that's
so that external pressure.
That's great for me.
Gotcha. What's the hardest part of writing for you?
I think stopping the preparation and actually sitting down and starting. So if I'm researching something or thinking about something, that can go on forever. So actually being like, well, okay, we're done with that part. Now it is time to put my butt in a chair. And
focus and not get distracted by gazillion other things.
Exactly. Getting started and staying on it for sure.
What's the most joyful part of writing for you?
Honestly, talking about my books after they're done. I mean, I do like the writing process. I really like language.
Yes.
You know, I like to try to say things in the way that I want to say them.
And I know you get to go to schools, right? You present
Yeah,
your books
some
in
of my books I do
several
talks
school
at
districts.
schools, right? So yeah, sharing it with other people
Yes.
really is the joy to me.
Absolutely.
Which is not the same. A lot of writers are very introverted and they write because that's their world. They don't want to deal with a lot of people. They want to deal with the page, but that's not me.
I will talk with my son's teacher and see if we can, because once a year they do the book reading to the kids.
Oh
in
yeah.
class. And so I'll see if I can bring one of your books in.
Yeah, if there's something they would find useful, that'd be great.
Do you prefer working solo or collaborating with co-authors, like in some of your books?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, working with someone else is always interesting. I don't know. They both have advantages. Solo, you don't have to compromise with anybody.
Exactly.
But I do feel like working with a co-author, or in the case of this book, working with an illustrator, the Weird and Wonderful book, it gives you ideas you would have never thought of.
Right.
And I think it probably makes the end product better overall. Because you have to justify your choices more. You have to someone else has to also like it while you're in the process of doing it.
So you get with some of your co-authors and do brainstorming sessions?
Yeah, definitely. And but the best is when I'm working on a book right now, actually, and we're each writing. It's a history of Forest Park. It'll be out next year. So similar to the Tower Grove book, but more
coming soon. History of Forest Park.
That's a scoop, actually. There you go. That is a scoop for you. So my co-author and I are each writing sections of the book, and then we just traded our sections, and we're reading through the others. The best part is when you get to you can't remember who wrote what, and we are at that point now. I was reading one the other night, and I thought, oh, I need to fix this, and then I emailed him and I said, did you write this or did I write this? And he said, I don't remember. Which is great, because that means that we are working together enough that we're both either one of us could have written that. So that's really exciting. I do like working with the co-author. It's fun. And writing is a very solitary thing, so working with someone else is enjoyable.
How do you find them, by the way? How do you find people? How do you pick the right person?
A lot of the people I've worked with, the illustrator that I worked with in Missouri Wind and Wonderful, my co-author for this Forest Park book, I've known their work for a while. I've seen other things they've done, and so
you just reached out.
Just kind of had an eye on what could we do together at some point. So,
beautiful.
Yeah.
Great. And now with technology, with Zoom, with internet, we can stay connected with people. I mean, I am an interpreter. I do interpreting work from all over the world.
Right.
And it doesn't matter whether I am in St. Louis or I'm in New York.
Yeah.
With Zoom, you essentially have a physical presence and a digital presence.
Right. Yeah. My brother-in-law has started writing children's books that he's publishing himself, but he's working with an illustrator. I believe his illustrator is in Africa. I could be wrong. They found each other on the internet.
Yeah.
And just the back and forth collaboration, he'll show me, just their messages back and forth. This guy is bringing his words into art, and then my brother-in-law will be like, I kind of wanted the horse to be looking this way, or could it be a little later in the day? And just watching their collaboration is amazing, because it's like they're in this, they've never met, they probably never will meet, but they're in the same space when they're working together. So
there's no more barriers, really. There's infinite potential in every field. Let's see. Have you ever had to cut out a story you loved because it just didn't fit?
Oh, all the time. I mean, it either didn't fit for space reasons, or it just didn't. There was something that messed up the flow, and that's what a lot of these little tiny bits of paper that fall out of my books are. Things that didn't quite make it in.
Make the cut. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. There's been some of the books that are more aimed at a kid audience. They're cool things I find out that just aren't famous murders or whatever.
Yes.
I'm not going to probably put that in a kid's book just
Of
because
course.
I don't need to terrorize someone's child. So.
Unless it's Halloween to terrorize your neighborhood. What role do humor and playfulness have in your writing?
Oh, I mean, that's my best friend from college and I say there's nothing worth doing if it's not going to be fun. So, I don't want to. I want it to be an inviting process. It's hard to reading is a thing that a lot of people don't have time for or make time for, particularly kids, and particularly all of us, as we get more and more digital all the time, it's harder to sustain. For me, it is really hard to sustain my attention span sometimes.
Right.
But so I think if you can
But
make
I
it,
pinned you down for a couple of hours today. So
I'm
good.
literally pinned down. Yeah,
That's good.
I think if you can just make it a fun experience.
Yes.
And make it, a lot of, not all, but a lot of my books are formatted in a way that it's easy to get in and out. You don't have to sit down and read page 1 to page 400. You could read one chapter, you could flip around on the page.
That's how I
And
like
that
it.
makes it more interesting, I think, too.
That's great. In my yoga classes, I often say, even in my bios, it says that my style of teaching follows the motto of ludendo docere, which means in Latin means to teach with fun, right? So to incorporate some humor in there too, because I do believe that humor is very important to recontextualize negativity by exposing some human fallacies that would be otherwise unapproachable, right? So that's how I put it. That's why I always bring a lot of lightness and humor and laughter in my yoga classes. Some people take it so seriously. Instead, it's just a game that we're playing in the moment. It's just movement therapy. Missouri. Okay, let's talk about one of my favorite. That's what actually drew me to you, because I was so impressed by this book. Missouri Weird and Wonderful. What sparked the idea for Missouri Weird and Wonderful?
Well, I think before I came to Missouri, I did not have any mental picture of what Missouri was. I thought there might be cows. I just really had no idea. I think maybe I knew the Arch was in St. Louis. I'm not even sure. And I think you could write this book about any place you wanted to, but there's so much just crazy stuff in this state. And the history of Missouri in particular makes it interesting because it was a border state during the U.S. Civil War, so you've got that weird tension there. It's always been at this like crossroads, right in the middle, kind of southern, kind of, are we Midwestern, are we Southern, is it Eastern, is it Western, all of that stuff. So that leads to interesting people being here, and that leads to crazy stories. So yeah, I think there's just like a non-ending source of interesting things.
In my case, I wish I'd have known about this book when I lived in Colorado, because before I moved to Missouri, and I was essentially trying to move here to be closer to my son, I was looking for fun places to go, people to see, and places to go. And so I started with just the classic, Incredible Pizza Company, all the parks and recreation stuff. But if I had known of all these great places to go to, just put it on the map. Right there. It's just all in one book. It's a fantastic read. How did you choose which weird facts and places to include?
So I worked from the beginning. The illustrator is a guy named Dan Zetwalk. He teaches illustration at WashU. He has a real job, and like this was so great to get him to do this project outside of his real job. But he also makes zines, and he does all kinds of stuff on his own. So he and I sat down at the beginning and brainstormed kind of chapters, because we knew otherwise it would be all over the place. So we came up with we're gonna have a sports section and food and history, landscape and natural things. So we had those buckets to fill, and then we just started looking for what would go in there, and we each had a list. I really love Elephant Rocks State Park. I knew that was going to be in there. Wherever it had to go, it was going to be in there. Dan really loves down by Jefferson Barracks. There's a telephone museum. That's his favorite place, and so he's like, I'm putting that in. So we just collaborated on the list back and forth until we had it down to a reasonable size. Very
interesting. So were there any that were too strange to make the cut?
We did cut. There's a whole bunch of kind of like ghost and supernatural stories. And we included a couple of those, but I didn't want it to be just a book about paranormal things, right? Because there are so many books and shows that are all about those topics. I feel like, and I don't feel like a great expertise in that kind of thing. So we kept in a few, we kept in the legend of Momo, the Missouri monster, who's supposedly like a Bigfoot type creature here in Missouri.
That makes sense.
But we left out a lot of the more ghost
What's your
stories.
personal favorite story in the book?
What's my favorite story in the book? There's so many weird things in the book.
You have to pick one.
I actually like I'm going to pick the whole chapter, but we
Sure.
can talk. I like the one about famous people from Missouri because, again, I don't think we get a lot of credit for anyone interesting having come from Missouri. So we have Walt Disney, who spent a lot of his childhood here. And his whole story, right? His whole story is so cool.
One of the reasons why I moved to the States, because when I was a kid in Italy, I used to watch all Disney's movies.
Yeah, right. Did you have a favorite when you were a kid?
Yeah, there was Il Papero della Gallina d'Oro, the duck with that laid the golden eggs.
Oh, I know the story, but I don't know if I've ever seen the Disney movie.
There's that one, and there's also, well, of course, Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
All the Disney classic, The Sword and the Stone.
Yes,
was huge.
that's a good one too. Yeah.
So I know all of the songs. I can still memorize all the songs dubbed in Italian. For just basta un poco di zucchero e la pillola va giù, la pillola va giù, pillola va giù. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So anyway, so he spent a lot of his childhood going to his his family farm in Marceline, Missouri, and there's a museum there. Anyway,
before he moved to California.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But he had a lot of the ideas he was coming up with. They have documentation of when he first started thinking about these things.
Amazing.
And then people like Scott Joplin, who wasn't he's from Missouri. He wasn't from St. Louis, and he kept going other places after here, but the king of ragtime and just those kind of stories. Ragtime music was scandalous in the day. Now we think of it as funny old timey music, but at the time it was seen as kind of like rap was when rap first came out. It was seen as disruptive, and it made young people do crazy things like dance. So stories like that, I think are really cool. I like all the famous
Very
Missourians.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I could talk forever about Walt Disney, just thinking about it.
Have you been to all the amusement parks? Is that a thing?
I went not in the States. I went to the one. I went to Euro Disney.
Yeah.
European Disneyland, which is in Paris.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the only one I've seen. But what fascinates me is that how he managed to turn imagination into manifestation in physical matter reality by creating the films, the cartoons, and the parks.
Right.
Just from one human mind,
right.
one brain, he was able to create.
So speaking of that, can I show Dan's illustration of Walt Disney? I don't know if we'll see it or not. I'll show it to you and you can describe it. But it's so funny that you say that, because the way he's pictured here is his head opening up.
Yes.
And all of those things coming out of his brain, right? So it's really funny that you say that.
It is an incredible mental factory.
Right. And and just his visions were so many futuristic things that turned out to be real. I remember going to Epcot Center when I was in high school, probably. And they had this crazy thing that was a video phone, and it's one day you'll be able to pick up the phone and call grandma and see her face, and it was mind blowing. And now you FaceTime anybody you want to.
Absolutely, my watch is set to double time.
Oh yeah,
Italian time.
Okay.
So I know when to call my mom.
Oh yeah.
At will, at no cost.
Yeah.
Would have been unthinkable. Think of what the Egyptians would have given to have a little box that will tell you everything.
Right.
So,
to send a message to the next village would be
right. So putting my spiritual mentor, Dr. Hawking, says that everything comes about spontaneously as potentiality becoming an actuality. Everything exists in a waveform first, and then it materializes, or the wave collapses into the Newtonian particles, so what we can touch, smell, see, and hear. And so that's what really fascinates me of the creative process, how ideas come to mind, and the transition point between the idea and the time that it takes to get to form, to bring it into physical matter reality. That's the philosophy I'm studying, the quantum physics. I love quantum physics. How did you collaborate with illustrator Dan Zetwalk?
Good job. That's exactly how you say it. He always tells people it rhymes with sweat sock. Yeah. So it was fantastic. I am not a visual person in that way at all. I love to write. I love words, and if I had to illustrate, it would be stick figures. I don't have that skill set. But he thinks pictures first, So we talked at the beginning. Here's all the things we want to have in the book. then I wrote, actually this was a different way than working with a writing collaborator, at least the way I did it. I wrote everything first. And I did ask Dan, are there certain things you know you want to draw? And he's like, yes. But I wrote everything first, and then I would send him the Word docs of what I had written, and then he would do some sketches and send them back to me. And what was amazing, I mean, how many times have you heard a picture is worth 1,000 words?
Yes.
But it's so true, because I would look at the picture he sent back, and then I could change my text because he had shown things that I didn't need to say anymore. So I could add in a little more or just take out a part completely because he brought it to life in a different way. So that was really like just wild to me.
Cool. That's great to hear.
It was cool because my brain doesn't work that way, and so to see that and be like, oh yes, we could do that.
Of course.
It was fun.
Does Dan live here in St. Louis?
He does.
Still hang out with him? And
yeah, I saw him this weekend. Actually, we did a little talk about this book somewhere. So yeah,
cool.
we
Is he going to illustrate your next book? No, you don't know yet. That's too much of a scoop.
Yeah, I don't know. We would love to work on something else together. We just have to find the right thing.
Gotcha.
You know. So.
Did you find any weird facts about Missouri that surprised even you?
Oh gosh, yes. Missouri is. We're the home. I don't know if I feel this is good or bad, but we are the home of the first drive-through restaurant in the United States. It's a place in Springfield called Red's Hamburg.
Yes.
Because it was on Route 66.
Right.
The guy who owned the restaurant also owned a cattle ranch, so he was growing cows and serving hamburgers.
Yes.
But he realized all these people are driving by, they're trying to get somewhere fast.
Sure.
But if they can pull through and get a meal, so stuff
That's
like
a great
that.
idea.
You never think about that.
Absolutely. Let's see. What do you hope young readers take away from the book? This particular book.
Just like a pride that there's cool stuff where you live. Because we were talking earlier, I think wherever you grow up, you don't think where you grow up is cool.
Yeah.
Or that you want to go somewhere else. Like you got to go to New York. You need to go to the beach. You got to go to Italy. Whatever. But most of your life, you're going to live where you live.
Yes.
So
where you have a sense of purpose.
Right. So to find things about where you are every day that are inspiring and interesting to you. I think that's what I want them to think. There's some cool stuff in Missouri because there's cool stuff. Right?
There is cool stuff. Yes, I've only been here about 4 years, and I'm getting to discover more and more cool things. You know, the Delmer Loop. I just saw the Fitz's shop and the what's it called? That big music venue on the Delmer Loop.
Oh yeah, the pageant.
Yeah, the pageant, and then there's that big restaurant with all the memorabilia.
Oh, Blueberry Hill.
Blueberry Hill.
Yeah,
so
right.
Cool.
Yeah, you could just walk around in there for half a day and look at all the stuff.
And all the pictures with the movie stars and rock stars.
Right.
What's the name of the owner of that?
Joe Edwards.
Yes,
he's in every picture there, right on the walls. It's like him with whoever. So
yes. Yeah. Let's see. Do you have plans for a sequel or expanded edition?
We have a lot of things that we couldn't fit in this one, so I don't know. We'll have to see if we can get the publisher to go for it. Definitely, and what would we call it? Weirder and wonderfuler? More weird Missouri? I don't know, but
like Dumb and Dumber.
Yes, exactly. Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I don't know, but yeah, we'd love to. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but we definitely both are still collecting ideas for it. So.
Gotcha. All right, let's talk about this other book that is actually I haven't seen it yet, but I can't wait to read it. 100 Things to Do in St. Louis Before You Die. 100 cose da fare a St. Louis prima di morire. I'll just say it in Italian.
Is there an Italian equivalent of the phrase "kick the bucket"?
Sì, tirare le cuoia.
What's it mean?
Well, I don't know the actual, because the translation is very. So tirare means to pull, and cuoio is the skin, to pull.
Oh, like to get yanked out of your skin or something. Ooh,
yes.
That's kind of, speaking of gruesome.
Yeah, very gruesome.
Okay, but that's what it implies, like kick the bucket.
Yes.
So on the cover of this 100 Things to Do in St. Louis Before You Die, there's a picture of a bucket. So it's supposed to be a bucket list. But when I talk to, like when kids see the book, they're like, how come there's a bucket on the cover? And I have to explain to them, kick the bucket.
Yes.
I don't know, it's a whole thing. But
It
anyway.
is very interesting. I love American idiomatic expressions. I keep studying them every day I keep learning. How did you whittle down hundreds of possible St. Louis activities to just 100?
Yeah, it's hard. Well, that book it's been in 2 editions now. There's a second edition of it, so that's the cheat. Is you just always save something and say it'll be in the next edition. Similarly, I had areas I knew there would be like a food section, music and recreation section, things like that. But you just have to be brutal. You just have to pick things.
What's the activity you think best captures the spirit of St. Louis?
I think a lot of the classic things that are sort of cliches, but what I found, St. Louis is a place where a lot of people have lived here for a long time, right? You're discovering that.
Of course.
Or they grew up here, they went away for a while, and then they come back. So it is kind of insular in that way. And I found that a lot of the cliche things like go fly a kite at Art Hill, or go to the balloon glow, or go to the Arch, all those things. A lot of people who have lived here forever haven't done them, even though they've lived here forever, and they'll say, oh, that's so stereotypical or whatever. But again, you kind of take for granted what's easy for you. So I think some of those kind of things are classic St. Louis experiences.
Right. I'm always, on the lookout for fun things to do for Pietro.
And there's so much, people say this all the time, but it's true. There is so much free and low cost stuff here that's really accessible. That's something I think that we have. I just can't. I have friends who are raising their kids in New York, and I don't know how they do it.
I just read yesterday a little post on Fox 2 TV or the news. St. Louis is one of the best cities to take people on dates, because there's always something to do.
Oh, like something.
And life is affordable, so you can rent for much cheaper than other places. Anyway, so you can find your sweetheart and offer him or her a good lifestyle in St. Louis.
My husband doesn't let me date, but I don't know if that's true. I haven't asked him actually, Brian. But no, it's true. It's easy, and you don't. Yes, the living is so it's less stress than in a more expensive, hectic place. So,
no state is exempt, or city is exempt from stress, right?
Right. Yeah.
We're all subject to the same laws of physics. We can.
Right.
But it's got a little bit of everything. I love Johnny Brock's costume party store warehouse. I would spend the whole day there just to nitpick every single item.
Oh my God.
Let's see. How do locals react differently to the book than visitors do?
Oh, definitely. People look at 100 Things to Do in St. Louis Before You Die and say, "Well, that's nice. That's nice. You wrote a book. I've lived here for 40 years, or I grew up here. I've probably done everything in your book." And I always say, "Open it up and take a look. Look at the table of contents." And inevitably, they're like, "Well, I haven't done that, or what is this? I've never heard of this." And so I think people think they've done a lot of things, and sometimes they have. Sometimes I get the person who's like, "Well, I guess I have to kick the bucket because I've done them all." But a lot of people are surprised at things that they didn't know about. Because when you have lived here forever, you tend to do the same things. You stay in your neighborhood, you go to your same place. We've been going to this restaurant for 40 years.
Yeah, it's the comfort zone, right?
Yes.
Stick to the comfort zone.
Exactly. And we have so many different areas of town and neighborhoods that that it's impossible to keep up with all the stuff you could do.
Right.
So
yeah, I'm waiting for Peter to get a little older, a little bit older, so that we can enjoy things through the lens of an adult.
Right.
So, but it's so much fun to see reality through his lenses of curiosity and wonder, sense of wonder. There's nothing but hanging out with kids.
Yes, definitely.
Which St. Louis neighborhood has the most hidden gems?
Ooh. So many hidden gems in every neighborhood. I really still love Cherokee Street and all of the, it's a business district, and so there are things that are destinations, like STL Style. If you want to go get some cool, crazy St. Louis merchandise, there's some great vintage stores down there. There's a really good coffee shop down there. But there's also just the kind of businesses that are supporting the neighbors, that are just everyday, people there all the time. And it's such an interesting mix of people.
Yes.
There are, like Black residents who have been there forever. There are a lot of Mexican residents in the area. Lots of like several Mexican bakeries and like ice cream places, and then you have kind of the like art, hipster arty crowd.
Yes, and the little music restaurants like Sippy's.
Yes.
And there's another one I have a good musician friend, Stephanie Rice, if you're listening to this. She works for part-time as a side gig for Pianos for People.
Yes.
You know Pianos for People?
Definitely, yeah. They're providing like instruments for people who can't afford it, right?
And it's right there.
Right there. There's a cat rescue. I mean, there's a little of everything. Have you been in the saxophone store, Sax Quest? So we go there because Milo.
Is that in Maplewood? Where is it?
No, it's on Cherokee also.
Cherokee.
Yeah. My son plays flute, and so we bought his flute there, and he goes there for repairs and stuff. But they have a saxophone museum. You know, like if you just want to go look at a weird collection of saxophones. So yeah, I like Cherokee Street a lot. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there. And it's very walkable, which is also nice.
Yes, it is.
Because you're not going to see everything if you're just driving through at 35 miles an hour.
That's right. And being from Italy myself, the reason why we are so skinny, even though we eat a lot of pasta, because we walk everywhere.
Right. Yeah. you can burn it off if you take it in and burn it off. All the same. Yeah.
So let's see. More questions about this book. So what is it like expanding from St. Louis to the entire state?
Oh, yeah. So so I have a book called 100 Things to Do in Missouri Before You Die.
Oh, in Missouri, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
Yes.
Partly it was in response to, people saying they had done everything in St. Louis, whether that was true or not. But again, because I just like to explore it. I think Missouri is sort of underrated as a place where there's everything interesting. So yeah, this was a book that I co-authored with a writer named John Brown, who is from a small town in Missouri called Bell, Missouri, and he's lived in like 10 small towns in Missouri. So he definitely knew a lot of things I didn't know. But it was great. It was a lot of fun. I got to see things that I, hadn't been to do before. So.
And learn new things.
Right.
How did you collaborate with John Brown on this project?
He said, I want to write about golf, and I want to write about the outdoors, and I want to write about all these little small towns where I've lived. And I said, great, how about I do food? What else did I do? Kind of like things to do with your kids, because my kids were a little younger then too, so we were still very much, looking for all that stuff.
Yes.
And it was good. He was super easy to work with.
Good, all right. Was there a debate over which 100 things to include?
Sometimes. And I won every time. No, we tried to make sure we didn't have too much of any one kind of thing. But John's a big golfer. He said I could write a whole book about 100 places to golf, and I said, well, we're not doing that. But not too much debate. Sometimes I would have to justify. Listen, I really think this is worth it, and I really want to keep it in, and so something on your list has to go.
I love when there's cooperation involved, and not just, hey, I am the head boss in charge.
Yeah,
good.
That doesn't work.
That doesn't work anywhere. Let's see, which Missouri town surprised you the most?
This is a big state. Let me think about that. There's a town called Ironton that is kind of and if you leave St. Louis going south and a little bit west, this area of the state, kind of in the middle, not all the way to the middle, but closer to the St. Louis side. There's an area of the state called Arcadia Valley. It's where Elephant Rock State Park is, so that's a part of it. But the whole region right there, Ironton is the county seat for Iron County. And it's really interesting. It's a tiny little town, but their courthouse still has a cannonball from the Civil War, like lodged in the wall. It was a big Civil War battleground site, not too far from there, back and forth. They've got some interesting little businesses. It's beautiful, like just geographically very pretty. It's just, it feels like stepping back in time in a lot of ways. So
from the perspective of an Italian transplant, I grew up watching my dad watching all the spaghetti western movies, all the Far West and the shootings and the cowboys. So it's for me, with my own eyes, it's so incredible to look at this historical places that remind me of the movies. You get to see those in real life.
And it's funny. So have you been to Kansas City much?
No. I passed through.
Yeah, right. So we're in the same state, right? St. Louis, Kansas City, but and when I went to school at the University of Missouri, it's kind of in between in Columbia.
Yes.
But the first time I went to Kansas City, it just feels Western. Like St. Louis doesn't feel Western that way to me because Kansas City was further, right? It was the frontier. They had the Pony Express was like started not too far from there. They had stockyards and it was really like the edge of the frontier. And it's funny to me how it can still feel like that.
Yes.
Even now, you know.
Yes, absolutely.
And it starts to feel a little bit more like that Western, like you're going to see people driving cattle through or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the most interesting things that I remember, not from Missouri, but from, really across the river in Illinois, I had an interpreting gig where it was in a courthouse. In the courthouse itself, outside of the courthouse, they still keep this display of the gallows, how people were executed back then.
Wow.
And it was just like less than 100 years ago. It's amazing.
Yeah, I know. The older I get, the more recent history seems to me. 100 years seems like nothing.
Seems like nothing,
right?
Exactly.
200 years seems like nothing. You could imagine it. I think when you're a kid, you can't imagine a week from now. It seems like you have to wait forever. But
now, from your side, I want to hear if you had to recommend just one Missouri experience to a visitor. Let's say, one of my family comes from Italy and they want to visit one thing from Missouri. What would that be?
Can I have two?
Okay.
Sure. Thanks. That's right. Okay, so in this area of the state, Arcadia Valley, there's a really famous state park that a lot of people go to called Johnson Shut-ins. But I really like another one that is very similar called Castor River Shut-ins. And shut-ins, it was a word I never heard till I lived here. It's geological formation, so these massive rocks where water has carved through. So kind of like the Grand Canyon, but not that big. So there are these pink granite boulders that are huge. I mean, they're very, very large. And then the water over the years has channeled through. And so it's almost like a water park, but made by nature. Beautiful. So there are big rocks you can slide down that are smooth as anything because it's been billions of years they've had water flowing over them. There are these little parts where you can just sit down and the water is going to carry you through. Then there's big spaces that are like swimming holes, and it's just
You just pay a ticket to get there?
No.
So you just drive there.
Drive there. There's like a parking lot. Yeah, you got to walk all the way down. You can bring, we bring usually some folding chairs and lunch and sunscreen for sure.
Yes. Interesting.
It's beautiful and really just like weird. You just look around and you can't believe it. And the water is usually cold. It's so good in the summer. And last time we went, there was a snake swimming right next to us. So Molly jumped out and wouldn't get back in. But my next summer she'll probably forget. So it's a lot of fun.
What's the second thing?
The second thing would be I really like the area up at where the Missouri and the Mississippi rivers come together, the confluence. I am not a bird person. Sorry, birders, but
Pietro is. He said he wants to. Since it's been little, he said he wants to work at the bird sanctuary.
Okay, well then he should spend all his time up there. But that's a place where all these migrating birds come through. They have trumpeter swans and herons and all kinds. And
what's it called?
There's an actual center there called. The Audubon Center at Riverlands or something like that, but the confluence is more what I'm thinking of, the confluence of the Missouri and the Mississippi rivers. And it's 20 minutes from the Arch. Okay. I think people would never have any idea that is so close. And it's really cool.
That's really great. I'm definitely going to keep this information, and when my family and friends, i miei amici, la mia famiglia vengono dall'Italia. Finally, let's talk about a locally produced guidebook to St. Louis.
Yes.
So what gap did you hope to fill with this guidebook?
This was actually the first book I ever wrote. And it was it's out of print now. You can sometimes find it at like the used bookstores and things like that. It's not being printed new anymore, but it's literally a neighborhood by neighborhood guide to St. Louis. And I totally thought that it would fill the gap of people who never leave their own neighborhood, to say like, you could come down by where I live in the South Grand area, and here's an interesting coffee shop. Here's a nonprofit that's doing something cool. Here's this. So it was
never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. Yes, I have a motto that is, if you are bored, you are boring, because that tells me that you're not working hard enough.
That's great.
There's something out there to find.
It's also a great philosophy to instill to teach your kids, for sure.
I think so. Also, I wear them out sometimes, but
Beautiful.
but they wear me out. To be fair, right?
Yes. I know Molly does dance and a lot.
Yeah, right, yeah.
She said she's going to be in the what's it called? The opera, not the opera, excuse me.
Oh, the
theater.
Nutcracker ballet.
The Nutcracker is like the 50 years in that.
Yes, yeah, she's very into it, yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome. How did you and Carrie Bonash divide the writing and research?
Carrie did all of the history writing in this book. So she, at the beginning of every chapter, there's a little bit about like the history of Brentwood, like what was this before it, before it looks like it does now. So she did that stuff for it, and then I did all the kind of current day, here's things to see, look around,
Good.
kind of thing.
Wonderful. And how was the book received by locals?
It did really well, honestly. People really liked it, and I have people today who still ask me, especially if they're getting someone moving, like somebody's coming into work where they work and they're coming from out of town. They're like, do you still have that neighborhood book? I'd love to give that to my new coworker. And I say, no, but go look online or go to Dunaway Books. They might have one. People definitely use it.
My next question is, how do you capture the soul of a neighborhood in words?
I think you have to go there yourself.
Uh-huh.
That's another thing about writing any of these books, but as much as possible, I try to, everything looks great on the internet, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's a great tool, but also you have to verify it.
Definitely.
So I would just go to as many places as I could and walk and meet as many people as I could and, try to find out what it's really like. How does it really feel to spend Saturday morning in Old North St. Louis? What would I do walking around with my own eyes to see it?
Interesting. In my personal experience as an Italian in St. Louis, which makes me a very unique monkey around here, sometimes I walk around neighborhoods and one of the things that I remember the most is I walk around and I see these barber shops, the ones at the corner, and so there is the ones that are owned only by African Americans. So I just walk around and I stare at the window, right? They look back at me and say, "What are you looking at?" And then I have to make sure that I present myself as very friendly, because I feel as one of them.
Yeah. No, I've had that experience too, because St. Louis, there are parts of St. Louis that are still super segregated racially. And I have definitely been walking around in a neighborhood where I was the only white person walking around and had people come. I've had people come out and literally say, "Are you lost? What are you doing here?" And then I say, "Well, I was actually hoping to, see this thing or whatever." But people are sometimes they're suspicious, because especially if you live in a neighborhood where just people don't usually pay attention to it or walk through there.
Yes. And I notice this mentality from the older generations. I am a transplant, so I am essentially fresh off the plane from Italy. And the first thing I did, I moved to close to the hill, right, the Italian American neighborhood. And I was trying to find a sense of belonging. Birds of feather flock together.
Right.
And even myself, I found it hard to integrate myself within the community. It took me time to really be recognized as one of them.
Yeah.
Right?
If you've achieved that, that's amazing. I think the hill is pretty closed in a lot of ways, right?
Most people let me feel like, hey, you're too Italian for us.
Right. This is the Italian American neighborhood, not the Italian neighborhood.
We like the toasted raviolis,
Just like Mama never made, right? It's a definite. I don't know. It is funny to be.
It is. We should do another video in the Hill neighborhood together sometime. Really capture the soul of the Hill neighborhood.
As long as I can go with a real Italian, that'll be
Certo. Assolutamente. Standing up for civil rights in St. Louis. This is another big one, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to have interest in social causes and being directly involved.
Right.
So what inspired you to write about St. Louis civil rights history?
So the Missouri History Museum had an exhibit a couple of, let me think what year that was. It was probably like 2015, maybe 2016, around in then. Maybe 2017. Anyway, they had an exhibit up at the museum for quite a while that was all about civil rights history in St. Louis. And they wanted a companion book to kind of go with it, but not, a lot of times if they do a book, it's strictly about the exhibit. It's kind of like a catalog of the exhibit. They wanted a book that was based on the same material and content, but that could stand alone. So when the exhibit went away, it was still useful. And they knew they wanted it to be like for school age readers.
Good.
So they reached out to me, and I actually co-wrote this with a friend of mine, Melanie, who at the time she worked at the History Museum.
Yeah, Melanie Adams.
Yes, so Melanie has Dr. Melanie Adams.
Doctor.
She's not in St. Louis anymore. She is now the head of a Smithsonian museum outside of Washington, D.C. Yeah. But she had a deep background in her whole doctoral dissertation was about educational equity access in St. Louis, the history of like Black people trying to get equal access to education in St. Louis, which is a huge part of the story. So I was very lucky to be able to work with her. She knew her stuff for sure. She was the historian in this project, and I was just the writer girl. But yeah.
So great. Were there any challenges in making such a serious subject accessible to young readers? Yeah,
anytime you talk about history, right, you have to, I mean, it's hard stuff, a lot of it. It's not all, if you're telling true stories, it's not all great. But I think, again, the way to do it, especially for kids, is to find stories they can relate to. So we talked a lot about the role that young people played in different civil rights movements in St. Louis. It was high schoolers who started, and this is, again, I'm from the South originally. They talk a lot about civil rights in the South, you know, and you hear about Birmingham and Selma and everywhere that Martin Luther King went and Rosa Parks and all these people, but that kind of stuff happened everywhere, and we don't ever hear about it in Missouri. But St. Louis had sit-ins at lunch counters where, you know, a group of Black people and sometimes mixed racial groups would go and sit at a counter and ask to be served and sit there, and people would spit on them and burn them with cigarettes and all kinds of horrible things. But just telling them, like, there were young people who were involved in all of this, and they were just like you, right? There's nothing, but they didn't know 40 years from now we would know their name.
Right.
That was a kid who saw something that wasn't right and tried to do something about it. So I think just giving them a feeling of like, these were people just like any other people. They didn't know they were heroes, right? They didn't know they didn't set out to be famous for civil rights. They were just trying to make something that was wrong right. But yeah, you have to tell a lot of uncomfortable stories, and I just try to just say it as plainly as I can because I don't want to, you know.
Awesome. I think you did a great job, and you know, we're living history right now in 2025 with all this civil rights movements. We got not only the diversity in color of the skin and the different nationalities, but also we have the LGBTQ, the Pride movement, right? There's always a rally. Rally.
Yeah.
We just had one the other day.
Right.
So it's good to memorialize and put everything in words for people to see at any moment. I love the work that you do. So let's see. How do you hope kids respond to this book?
I just hope that they see that, you know, even if you're a kid, you can make a difference. I mean, I think when you're a kid, you feel really powerless.
Yes.
Because you are really powerless. I mean, a lot of other people make decisions for your life all day long.
Yes.
But understanding that you do have power yourself and that you can use your voice.
Yes.
You can talk to other people and, you know, see if they see things the same way. Yeah, I just really think understanding that every action is somewhat human. I was just listening to I heard half of a radio show yesterday in the car, and they were talking about the founding fathers of the United States and, you know, the Constitution, all this stuff. And they were saying, you know, we hold them up like the founding fathers and, you know, all these important things. They were people. They were like us. They were fighting then about the same stuff we're fighting about today.
Yes.
They weren't these amazing, superhuman people without flaws and faults. You know, they were people who had bad habits and bad ideas sometimes. And so just kind of understanding that, like, history is all about actions that people took and decisions people made. And so I think kids can relate to that because if they feel like, oh, I could do something, you know, like, and because of this, my daughter will start a petition at the drop of a hat. She'll start a petition at school about anything because she thinks she has power. But it's good. That's what you want. You don't want kids who are going to just do exactly what they're told all the time because that's not going to be good for them in 20 years, you know.
I believe that as long as you inspire kids to take action out of love and not fear, if you're operating out of love, your outer world will be a direct reflection of your choices. If I love you, I'm not going to belittle you. I'm going to respect you for who you are.
Right.
And I'm going to respect your space and choices. So
yeah, there's so much. I do not operate out of. I mean, I'm sure I do operate out of fear sometimes, but I really try not to, because so much of it you can turn around just with curiosity.
Right.
You know, like why am I afraid of that person, or what is it about this that makes me afraid? It's because I don't know about it, or it's because I have a perception that it's going to affect me somehow that may not even be true. You know.
Right.
But
and that's a natural protective system of our nervous system.
Right. It's evolution. It's
evolution. Yes.
We're looking for the saber-toothed tiger all the time.
Exactly. So we have a limbic system, and then we have the prefrontal cortex, which is designed for executive function and making choices that are regulated by good manners.
Right.
Manners.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's always, in yoga we talk a lot, in the yoga world we talk a lot about the dichotomy between love and fear, and ultimately the realization that everybody wants to get is letting go of the illusion of separateness, the illusion that there is another person.
Right.
In reality, we're all mirroring each other.
Yeah.
And we're mirroring each other. And we all walk the same earth. We all have 100 years at best to live.
Right.
And if we get there healthy.
Right.
And so removing the illusion of separateness. So there's no more black and white. There's no more male and female, the masculine and the feminine, and war between the two.
Right.
You see a world that is more united. So you can see the collective consciousness as opposed to seeing, oh, this is my business, that's your business, this is my water, that's your water.
Right.
You see separate.
Well, the separateness really of history and now, right?
Yes.
Like thinking that that happened in a different time, or it's,
Yeah.
like I said, the older I get, the more I feel like history is nothing, you just think
Sure.
like, no, that just happened. Like we're all still we're creating this together.
We're creating this together. Even right now, we're recording this video. It's just like a crystallized moment in time.
Right.
But hopefully it's going to be seen by somebody, and hopefully make a difference. So let's talk about To the Top, a Gateway Arch story.
Oh, yeah.
This is another big one. Why did you want to tell the story of the Gateway Arch?
It's something, if you live in St. Louis, you see it every day probably. If not the actual arch, you see the logo on something.
Yes.
I mean, it's our identity. It's, if anyone in the world knows anything about St. Louis,
Totally.
it's probably, there's an arch, maybe like a sports team if they follow sports, and that's really probably it. So,
That's
so
where
just,
I would take, the first place I would take my family to if they visit St. Louis.
Right,
That
yeah.
and the Carnival Stadium.
right, people know it, so.
How did you work with illustrator Tony Waters?
Tony, actually, this is funny, I've never met Tony in real life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he lives in, I haven't talked to him in a couple years. Last time we were in touch, he lives in Kentucky, I believe, maybe Virginia. But he had illustrated another book that was this similar kind of style. It's got kind of like a watercolor. It's just a really like a pretty looking illustration. So so I, similar to working with Dan, although a little less intense. We were only telling one story in the Arch book, but I would send him ideas for words on the page, and then he would work around it, and we just kind of went back and forth.
What do you love most about the arch as a symbol of St. Louis?
It's so, it's so complicated in a way, and I like that. I didn't really know much of the history of the arch, and the book doesn't really go into the history. I learned a lot of this later, but I mean, it goes into the history of making the arch.
Right.
But before the arch was there,
engineering at the time.
yes, and it's an amazing story. And one of the things they tout at the arch is that no one died during the construction.
Oh, yes.
Which was expected. They had insurance people who had secret calculations that they thought probably about 13 people will die or something. They have all these tables that tell you that. It's just crazy. It's like again, a dream made into a reality. It was, the arch. They had a contest for the design. All they knew was they wanted a memorial. Here's the parameters, and this guy came up with this crazy thing that had never been built before, and they weren't even sure it could be built, and now we have it. So.
Wonderful. So do you see this book as part history or part celebration?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely both of those. I think it gives some information to something that I think especially kids see all the time, you know.
Right,
so.
right. If you could write another book about another St. Louis landmark, which would it be?
Was that in your questions? Man, I didn't see that one. Ooh, that's a great question. Another St. Louis landmark. I don't know. I mean,
Stadium?
there's so many people who'd be better at that than me. Honestly, not that far from the Arch, the old courthouse would be a really interesting one to write about. There's a lot of cool history there, and just again, architecturally, it's really neat. But just the things that went on inside that building and still go on. I was walking through a few years ago. It's probably pre-COVID. Accidentally walking through on a Saturday when they were having a naturalization ceremony for all the new citizens, and it was. I mean, I started crying. It was so beautiful. Yeah. They're in the rotunda, you know, and all of the people are taking their oath of allegiance or whatever is involved with that. And I just thought, this is amazing.
Amazing.
That
yeah,
it's happening right here.
Inspiration for another book, right?
Yeah, maybe so.
Now, let's go talk about the Tower Grove Park, common ground in Grateful Shade since 1872. 1872. What drew you to Tower Grove Park as a subject?
I live 3 blocks from there. And I knew that it's a beautiful park, and it's the reason that in the city that you don't have to have a giant yard because you probably have a really nice park somewhere close to where you live. But I really did not know much about the history of it. And so learning about it and its relationship, it's very closely related to the Missouri Botanical Garden, which is another great place to visit. So yeah.
What role does Tower Grove Park play in St. Louis community life? Because I know there's the market, the farmers market, huge.
Right.
There's also a lot of this, civil rights events going on, the rallies and
definitely
local vendors, people, street artists or just local artists gives voice to all these people. So.
Right. It's so used by. So some of the things I learned writing the book, they're on the north side of the park on Magnolia. There's the Missouri School for the Blind, which is a state-run school, and it's been there since the 1800s. They chose that location specifically because they wanted to be near a place that wouldn't be developed and turned into just nothing but commercial whatever, because they wanted their students to have access to some nature close by. And even now, the School for the Blind uses the park when they're teaching visually impaired, some kids, but also adults, what do they call it, wayfinding? So being able to use the cues around you to help you navigate. So, they say the park is great because you get close to the edge, you hear traffic, you know that you're by Grand or Kings Highway. But within the park, how do you move around? And the paths aren't all just straight grids. They move, they curve, so you have to be able to kind of contextualize where you are to get around. That's amazing. I never knew that. They have races in there and all kinds of stuff. So
right. And let's see, what challenge did you face writing about a living, evolving space, if any?
Just hearing all the different things that people think should be in the park. Everyone has an idea. The people who play pickleball, they think it should be all pickleball, right? That everything needs to be made easier for the pickleball people. The farmers market people who go there for that, they think everything should be all about that. People who just live nearby and walk their dog, they don't want to see all that. They just want to walk their dog. So just kind of seeing that tension, how people have to be able to compromise and.
Well, everybody's got an ego that they want to defend, right? Everybody sees life through their own subjective lens.
Right.
And so, it's a public place, right? It's a public park.
It is, and it always has been. When it was built, Henry Shaw, the guy who gave all the money for the Botanic Garden, he had been traveling back in England and in Europe and seen these amazing parks, most of which were private. You had to have a key, right? Like in London, some fancy neighborhood in London, built around a park, had a gate, and if you lived there, you had a key. That's how you got in. And so he wanted that, but for everyone, for anyone to be able to go there.
Great.
So.
I love dog watching when I go to the park. There's so many beautiful dogs.
Yes.
And they do dog painting, all the.
Then you have the ones that look like little horses, gigantic dogs. I saw 2 this morning being walked, and I did a double take to make sure they were dogs. So.
Yeah, I also do yoga for dogs or for dog owners, for real. So let's see. Missouri Almanac. Last couple of questions.
Oh, yeah.
Right? How did you approach writing a book as wide-ranging as an almanac?
Yeah, so the idea for this book was actually, this was a team. There were 5 or 6 of us who worked on this book. And several of us at that time had kids who were in like elementary school. And I don't know if Pietro is into these kind of books, but a lot of times the books that you'll see at the Scholastic Book Fair or something, just books of facts, right? Like they just want to read you all the facts and say, did you know this and this and this and this?
I love the Guinness World Record.
Yes, so it was kind of inspired by books like the Guinness Book. National Geographic publishes like a kid's almanac every year, so it was that kind of idea, just like a ton of facts and really cool, just like here's a quick picture and here's, you know, something you could yell at your parent from the back seat of the car. Did you know that the otter can hold his breath or whatever? So that was what it was modeled on.
Very cool. So what's your favorite entry in this almanac?
Oh gosh, you know, one of the best ones, I'm not going to remember them all, but one of the best ones is about weird Missouri town names, because I think kids will think that's hilarious. We have like Licking, Missouri. Licking.
Oh, Licking.
Licking, Missouri. There's Tightwad, Missouri. That's another one. There's some really funny, weird little place names for towns with 23 people in them.
I can't wait to read that. What was it like collaborating with Carolyn Mueller, Tracy Angel, and John Brown?
Yeah, it was a lot of, it was fast and furious. With that many people working on something all the time, there were just a lot of emails flying around. And also making sure that we weren't duplicating anything, you know, because it's a lot of people with their hands in it. So
right. So when you write a book in collaboration, you split the profit, like you guys have. How does the
way we had a contract at the beginning, and like we each get, like, I can't even remember what it was for that book, but we each get like a 5% royalty or whatever. Yeah.
Let's see. Was there anything especially fun to research?
Oh, yeah, a million things, like where, you know, all these foods that we have that are supposedly from Missouri, like, are they really? How did they first happen? Everyone, you know, on the Hill, everyone's got their story of how they invented toasted ravioli, right?
Totally.
So just hearing people's...
I did it first.
Hearing people's origin story for things like that, that was fun, finding that stuff out.
Oh. How do you make facts and figures come alive for readers?
Well, either with really great graphics, so they look at it, or just some outrageous kind of thing right at the beginning, a hook right at the beginning.
Right.
We had another section, I'm just remembering, that was in the almanac, was laws that are still on the books in Missouri from, who knows, from the 1800s, you know, like it's illegal to put your horse in a bathtub, or just finding the craziest stuff like that, I think appeals to people. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so fun. Did you see this book as more educational or entertaining, or both?
I would say probably entertaining more. It doesn't have, the little nuggets in there are so short, but again, hoping to inspire whoever would read it to like, that's weird, I want to find out more about that. I don't think you would necessarily get a deep education from it, but you might be like, that's crazy, I'm going to go look that up, or I'm going to see if I can find a book about that topic, you know? So.
Tell me about, so this is a big question, I like this question. Do you think almanacs still have a place in today's digital world, right? So because we can access everything we want with a click of a fingertip, especially kids these days are glued to a screen. So. Totally,
yeah. I do, but I have a vested interest in physical books because that's what I do, but it is, it's a curation, right? So it's not everything in the world.
Right.
It's a collection of, these things are brought together for a reason.
Sure.
So maybe it'll give you, it's like a framework so yeah, I do. And I will say, like, we have books in the backseat of the car all the time because if we're driving around, I try really hard to not have my children glued to their screens in the car, at least.
Yes.
Look out the window. And it's so funny, though, because I remember my parents saying the exact same thing to me about books when we would go on road trips when I was a kid. Get your nose out of the book. You're missing, there's history, there's mountains, there's whatever. And I was just...
I was doing the same thing because I came from Colorado with Rocky Mountains and the beautiful roads that we have there, they have there. And so I was doing the same with Pietro. Stop looking at your phone.
Right. Hey, hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Where in Colorado were you?
I was in Fort Collins.
Oh my gosh, yes. Wait, did we talk about this already? Brian has family in Fort Collins. So
yes,
we've
I
been
think you
there.
mentioned that.
We've been there several times.
Yes.
Fort Collins is so gorgeous.
I created in those 5 years a beautiful community. I'm a big people connector, so I co-hosted the Fort Collins Italian Club, which
nice.
now has over 400 people, and they get together for coffee conversation.
That's incredible.
Italian potlucks and movie screenings. So
That's great.
that's what I would like to recreate now here. That's what I'm working on in the Hill neighborhood with my Italian language tutoring sessions every Saturday from 11 to 1. Now, how did you decide what belonged and what didn't in the final edition?
Honestly, we made the editors make a lot of those choices because we
okay.
wanted to keep everything. So they just, somebody else who's not connected to your work and go,
Yes.
no.
That's good. They're not emotionally invested. Gotcha.
It's always heartbreaking though to be like,
I
what
know.
happened to
I know.
that great story?
Like
But
my babies. Come on.
yeah, it's fine. That's the nature of the game. So.
If you could add one more quirky Missouri fact, what would it be?
Whew.
You can think of one.
Let me think. There have been so many interesting things that have happened since that book came out. So Patriots into Birds. Have you been to the World Bird Sanctuary?
Yes, once.
Okay, so they had, I don't know why this just came to me. There was this eagle there called Murphy. Do you know the story of Murphy?
No.
He was a bald eagle. He's still there. I can't remember what his story is, why he's there. He was injured or something. But they had a hatchling that came in that they needed to do something with.
Yes.
So anyway, they gave this baby eagle to Murphy.
Okay.
To see if he would kind of treat it like a father. Yeah.
Yes.
And he did. He was the best foster dad ever in the world. And they grew up this baby and were able to release it. Murphy's never going to be released because he's been in captivity so long and he's so domestic. He can't make it on his own. But this little baby that he raised was able to be raised and released. And so before that they had given Murphy a rock, like an egg, to see if he would take care of it. And he did, and that's how and I think that's such a
That's a great fact.
Yeah, and it's such a funny story, but yeah.
Raptor birds are dear to my heart because in Colorado I did a work study position for the Rocky Mountain Raptor program, which is just exactly like the bird sanctuary here.
Yeah.
So I was in charge of the food processing. I was chopping up rats, mice, rabbit, and prairie dogs to feed the birds. So we had owls, eagles, hawks, and falcons.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was great. And actually, it was during the pandemic, so that kept me away from all the drama and the negativity of those times.
You could just go in and chop up little rodents.
Yes, and clean out the birds. Well, that was my job. But we did some great releases. So they come injured, then they put them in a hospital cage, then a larger enclosure, and then a larger enclosure until they can get back to flying. They can practice flying, and then finally they can digest the food on their own.
Yeah.
And then you can let them go. So you bring them out into the field.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a great experience.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about World Bird Sanctuary until I was thinking of that. That's another great St. Louis place.
Sure.
And it's, it's essentially free. I think they ask for a donation, but you wouldn't have to.
Yes, I think they pay for parking, like $10 for parking.
Yeah, maybe. I love that place though.
I do too. Let's see. And is the almanac available? Where do you find it? Is that
it's actually it is at Barnes and Noble.
Oh, very cool. Yep. Great. So it's distributed all over the country?
It's probably just regionally is my guess.
Okay.
I don't actually know the answer to that, but I know it's here. I know it's Barnes and Noble's in Missouri and Illinois for sure.
That's really incredible. It's been such an honor to have you, Amanda, today. Thank you again for sharing your time, your stories, and your perspective with us today. Your work reminds us that Missouri isn't just a place on a map. It's a living, breathing story full of people, traditions, and surprising moments of wonder. For those of you watching, I encourage you to check out Amanda's books. They're entertaining, educational, and truly inspiring. I'll make sure to link to her website and her works in the description below, but for the time being, what's your website?
It's my name, amandaedoyle.com.
Okay, good. So that's how people find you online?
Yeah, they can see my books there, and there's a lot of information.
And thank you for joining us here at Yogaphora Conversations. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and share it with anyone who loves stories about culture, creativity, and transformation. I'm Andrea Spadafora, massage therapist, yoga instructor, educator, and founder of Yogaphora LLC here in Brentwood. Until next time, remember, connection and curiosity are the roots of transformation. Arrivederci. See you soon. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you. It's been really fun.
Yes, thank you.